Thank you, distinguished guests, fellow Vermonters. Thank you for getting to work so quickly this session. I'm proud of you. This is the earliest budget address in a decade, which enables us to accomplish the important work Vermonters sent us to do and adjourn in a timely fashion. Since my budget is being presented before the official revenue forecast is updated, refinements may be required if projections change significantly. Today I present a budget that makes the necessary choices to match our spending with Vermonters' ability to pay. This is a balanced budget that protects our most vulnerable, strategically invests new dollars in making Vermont the education state, and builds on our strong jobs future. Last year, we made tough choices and closed a $176 million gap. Today, I present a budget that closes a $51 million shortfall without raising broad-based taxes on hardworking Vermonters who continue to struggle to make ends meet. The budget also preserves programs for Vermont's most vulnerable, our seniors, Vermonters with disabilities, our children, and those who live in poverty. We face two challenges this year: to rebuild this state better than the way Irene found us, and to continue to build on our bright jobs future. To those who say we can't do both at the same time, I say we must. We start by getting credit to entrepreneurs when they need it most. In partnership with our able treasurer, Beth Pierce, we're asking the legislature to increase the state's moral obligation support for VITA by up to $30 million. Next, over 600 historic buildings in our downtowns were flooded by Irene, sending many Vermonters out of work who were counting on us. I'm proposing an additional $500,000 in downtown tax credits. Each dollar leverages 16 additional dollars in job creation, and every $1 million creates 110 new jobs in our downtowns. For the municipalities hit so hard by Irene, I recommend we provide assistance in two ways. First, my budget increases the state match for town highways on the federal aid system. Second, for those towns whose storm damage completely overwhelms their ability to pay, the state will pay your entire share of the FEMA match. My message to towns is clear. We stand with you all the way as we rebuild together. Many individuals and communities are faced with tough decisions about whether to rebuild in floodplains. The FEMA buyout program only recovers 75% of the pre-Irene property value. My goal is for the state to cover the remaining 25% where needed. Through the Vermont Housing and Conservation Board, we will provide a minimum of $2 million in matched funds for Vermonters who seek buyouts for destroyed homes or towns who are seeking flood mitigation. Vermont's transportation infrastructure pre-Irene was crumbling before our eyes. We will take the lessons from Irene to rebuild our roads, bridges, and rail stronger, faster, and more affordably. My budget proposes the largest transportation program in Vermont's history by adding $45 million to desperately needed paving and bridge projects. It also increases town highway aid by $1.5 million, the first such increase in 6 years. We must turn the devastating flooding at our state complex into opportunity by building efficient, effective, green state workspace for the future. The following principles must inform our decisions as we consider how best to rebuild. 1, when making capital investments of taxpayer dollars of this magnitude in real estate, facts really matter. Weighing the cost of each of our options is critical. 2, with more intense storms looming large in our climate change future, our investments must be protected from getting washed away in future storms. 3, we will use this opportunity to co-locate and integrate state agencies that share a common mission. I recommend the following actions to you today. First, it should be clear from the effective collaboration of the past 4 months between the agencies of transportation, natural resources, and commerce that they be co-located and integrated on a permanent basis. It makes sense to consolidate them in the space that we're currently leasing at National Life in Montpelier. Second, the Department of Education is currently functioning in 2 different locations in central Vermont, inhibiting efficiency and collaboration. I recommend relocating the Department of Education to the office building being proposed in the heart of downtown Barrie by Mayor Lozon, Representative Poirier, and others. This action will help revitalize Barrie's downtown and return it to a vibrant center for commerce and job creation. Third, the Agency of Human Services is scattered between Washington and Chittenden counties. This inhibits our ability to provide seamless and integrated service to the people who need state government the most. I ask you support me in reuniting AHS into one location centrally in central Vermont. My first choice is to unite them in Waterbury. There you go, Ann. Before we make that decision, we must first ensure that we can keep it dry and modernize the workspace affordably. Rebuilding in Waterbury would be ideal. My administration, working with the legislature, will move as quickly as we possibly can, and as our architects and engineers develop the multiple scenarios under consideration. Whatever the outcome, it's unlikely that the significant costs incurred will be entirely covered by FEMA or by our insurance policy. That's why I'm requesting that the House and Senate Institutions Committees redirect $18 million of the previously approved projects to help us cover the investments that lie ahead. Irene has also delivered an opportunity to create an outstanding mental health system for Vermont. We will not return to the state hospital, whose decrepit condition did not dignify our most vulnerable Vermonters or the high quality of care provided by our state employees. Since that fateful August day, when we evacuated the hospital, we have worked tirelessly with our mental health community, state employees, community providers, hospitals, and designated agencies to put in place a plan to address our short-term crisis and design a long-term solution. Guided by the simple principle that quality care for patients is our top priority, we will expand community services, increase peer services, enhance hospital care regionally, and build a new state-of-the-art facility. In our effort to achieve mental health parity, it is inexcusable that we require patients seeking acute care for mental illness to travel far from home to receive it. Our plan allows for acute care and community-based care in multiple locations throughout Vermont to keep patients close to home. While we should be proud of our collective response since our hospital was flooded, let us not forget we remain in a crisis situation. While we have been fortunate to avert disaster or loss of life thus far, that could change at any moment. I appreciate your commitment to address this emergency in an expedited fashion. Your authorization of acute care beds to the Brattleboro Retreat, Rutland Regional, and Windsor County cannot happen soon enough. Vermont's taxpayers will be relieved to learn that most of these costs for fit-up will likely be paid for by FEMA. We must also break ground on our new 16-bed state-operated facility in central Vermont this summer. I'm counting on you to put a bill on my desk by February 17 that implements this plan and moves us from crisis management to quality care. That's what Vermonters deserve. Some critics have argued that during this session we must limit spending, and particularly discretionary spending, only to items that are Irene-incurred expenses. I say we must not pit Vermonters against Vermonters. We must not say to our low-income seniors in Springfield that we can't provide heating assistance to keep them warm this winter because Irene didn't happen to impact them directly. We must not tell small businesses in the Northeast Kingdom that they don't deserve support, or a struggling dairy farmer in Swanton that we can't help them stay in farming because they were not impacted by Irene. Pitting Vermonters against Vermonters is not the Vermont way, it's not Vermont strong, and we must not do it. My budget proposal includes a $282 million appropriation to the Education Fund. For the second year in a row, we are increasing education funding dollars this year by $6 million in our effort to hold the line on property taxes. Recognizing that in recent years, Vermonters gathering at town meetings have chosen to spend more per pupil than almost any other state in America, I commend our local school boards for holding the line on new spending over the past 2 years, and I urge them to do it again. Rising property taxes continue to be a tremendous burden for Vermonters struggling in its recovery, and a failure by local boards to hold the line again will result in unacceptable property tax increases. As student enrollments continue to decline, we're finally seeing a downward trend in the number of teachers and staff, which should make funding our local school budgets even more achievable at a flat level this year. I'm a strong supporter of local control. I firmly believe that we in Montpelier should never live under the illusion that we should decide which schools stay open and which schools should consolidate. However, we can save money and retain local control by cutting administrative costs and consolidating supervisory unions. Senator Kevin Mullen has proposed consolidating our 60 supervisory unions, reducing bureaucracy, and saving taxpayers roughly $9 million each year. This bold proposal deserves your consideration. Your recently released school funding study demonstrates that through Act 68, Vermont has found more success than any other state in the country in converting the regressive property tax into a fair education funding system. Now is our time to move on from the old battles about whether our financing system works. The opportunity now is to partner with our locally controlled education community to do the more important and difficult job of enhancing creativity and quality for every Vermont student. Our challenge is twofold. First, despite our progress in achieving equity, educational achievement continues to stubbornly track family income. Second, our delivery system leans too heavily on the rigid model that time spent in the classroom with blackboard and pencil will collectively result in acquisition of skills for our diversity of learners. From early childhood education to higher education to technical school, we have among the most innovative offerings in the country. By creating a seamless system that allows each student to take advantage of these offerings, we will achieve excellence. However, we have to have the courage to do some things differently. We must start by elevating the Commissioner of Education to the Secretary of Education appointed by the Governor. We must also continue to partner with our local communities to expand access to pre-K education. Last year, we lifted the cap that gives every community equal access to quality pre-K education. Continuing to build universal pre-K in Vermont will assure a strong start for every Vermont student. Flexibility is critical for all students, and I strongly believe that expanding our limited school choice for all of our public high schools in Vermont will enhance innovation. Additionally, allowing high school juniors and seniors to take college credit courses for college credit wherever they choose will make higher education more affordable for low and middle income first generation students. This flexibility with the money following the student should be available to all high school juniors and seniors in Vermont. In my travels to businesses across this state, I hear consistently a similar story. Businesses are hiring, but they can't find enough Vermonters with the skills in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. To address this growing problem, I propose an $8 million innovation investment in the University of Vermont and the Vermont State Colleges. This one-time investment from the Higher Education Trust Fund will still leave the fund 10% higher than it was last year. Under my proposal, the University of Vermont will use its one-time investment of $4 million to undertake the following. 1. Expand successful university partnerships, giving seniors the opportunity to get hands-on job experience with businesses and nonprofits. 2. create an international center of excellence in complex systems at UVM that will enhance economic growth. This new multi-million-dollar Sandia National Lab is just one example of the kinds of innovation these investments could stimulate. 3, develop a program that facilitates the re-entry of critically needed science and engineering professionals back into the workforce. By targeting women who have temporarily left their fields, often to raise families, we can help retain already skilled workers and get them back to work. The Vermont State Colleges will use its $4 million to, 1, allow more high school students to enroll full-time in college during their senior year, saving their families money and getting a head start on finishing college. That's incredibly important. 2, create an applied educational institute supporting the renaissance in agricultural and food production sectors that are doing so well that we want to grow in Vermont. And 3, improve access to CCV and VTC in southern Vermont by supporting a consolidated academic center in downtown Brattleboro. Both CCV and VTC, the School of Nursing, now are operating in antiquated leased space. This investment will be an economic shot in the arm for downtown Brattleboro, which has been hit hard by fires and floods. We hear a lot about the need to invest in innovation and the future workforce. This is an opportunity to back our words with action, and I urge you to support these initiatives. To build jobs, we know that strong, coordinated marketing efforts of the Green Mountain State, led by the Department of Tourism and Marketing, works. Leaf peepers poured into Vermont despite Irene. To keep our tourism industry vibrant, my budget fully funds our marketing efforts. Manufacturing in Vermont is showing signs of life. I've asked Secretary Lawrence Miller to lead an advanced manufacturing initiative that will bring together education, industry, labor, and government to make recommendations about how to advance manufacturing gains, which we're already making, how to feed them faster. One way to grow jobs is to make sure that our permit process is predictable, transparent, and timely. Secretary Markowitz and Natural Resources Board Chair Shems have been holding public meetings around the state, hearing from hundreds of Vermonters about what works and what should be improved in our permit process. The message is clear. We need more efficiency. We need more transparency. Under Act 250, when an applicant or neighboring group makes their case before the local environmental commission, that should count for something. I asked the legislature to require the environmental court to use the commission's record of the hearing to settle an appeal, avoiding the costly and inefficient process of starting all over again. Stewardship of our natural resources requires us to manage our wildlife and habitat by promoting hunting and fishing. Hunters and anglers have been the backbone of Vermont's fish and wildlife conservation efforts for many, many years. Unfortunately, over the last 7 years, general fund dollars appropriated to the department have plummeted by almost 60%. As a lifelong hunter, I know firsthand how important hunting and fishing is to Vermont's quality of life and economic success. It's clear to me that we can no longer rely solely on the revenue from hunting and fishing licenses to adequately support our fish and wildlife resources. That's why my budget includes a 150% increase to $2.4 million to fish and wildlife, an investment that will leverage nearly $8 million in federal dollars to ensure a bright future for Vermont's sportsmen and women. One year into our war on recidivism, we are seeing progress. Despite correction spending doubling in the past decade at an average cost of $48,000 per inmate, our incarceration population is finally declining and is now at the same level as 8 years ago. Our progress represents a $2.5 million savings since just last year. I propose reinvesting half of those savings to deliver on our promise of providing housing, counseling, job training, drug and alcohol prevention, and treatment to nonviolent offenders who've completed their sentences. This will add 93 community-based treatment beds to help us win the war. Our fight against prescription opiate addiction is directly related to our war on recidivism. There are three components of addressing this growing epidemic. The first, as I outlined last week, is giving law enforcement access to the prescription drug monitoring system. Second, our Department of Health is creating a cutting-edge system that will increase substance abuse treatment for the many Vermonters who so desperately need it. Third, we'll work with our prescribers to help them implement best practices to responsibly dispense addictive opiates in the state of Vermont. A final word about my budget proposal. Last year at this podium, I called on the legislature to raise our reserves to 8% as soon as we return to better times. As a first step towards that goal, I am recommending a down payment of $3.1 million to the stabilization fund. Should revenues exceed our forecasts in future years, I will insist that we go the rest of the way to fulfill this important commitment. I know that I've outlined an ambitious agenda to rebuild our state while we create a better economic future for all Vermonters. While I believe strongly in the principles and proposals that I've outlined to you today, I also welcome your suggestions for improvement. This year, as last, we will work together in a bipartisan spirit to do our very best for the state we love. Thank you so much. Let's get back to work.